All right, so continuing on, we're going to explore what makes carbon so special and how building blocks called monomers form larger polymers and why the four main groups of macromolecules, carbs, lipid, proteins, and nucleic acids, are essential for life. Your learning objective for this first part of this section is to be able to explain why carbon is unique and differentiate between monomers and polymers. Macromolecules are large molecules. Macro means large, micro means small. And they're always composed of carbon along with other atoms. In fact, they all have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in similarity, and some of them have a few extra elements, and we'll talk about in a second. Uh, they're important because living organisms depend on these macromolecules to survive. You might be familiar with these macromolecules, also called macronutrients, that you see on the nutrition label. So let's start with carbon. Carbon is unique because it has four valence electrons, which means it can form strong covalent bonds with many other elements. Even more importantly, carbon can bond with itself, creating long chains and even rings. And this ability gives rise to an incredible variety of unique molecules, which is why carbon is the backbone of life, because of its ability to bond with itself and many other elements and molecules, right? So that is why carbon is so important. Um, so we even use carbon synthetically. Researchers or scientists have been able to create long chains of carbon that are super durable and create structures like nonstick pans and waterproof jackets that really are dangerous to our health, but extremely resilient, often called PFAS is the class of chemicals that they are, and they're often called forever chemicals because when they get in your body, they never leave, which causes a whole host of problems. Um, okay, so macromolecules are, many of these carbon-based molecules are called macromolecules. Macro means large, and these molecules are made by linking smaller subunits called monomers. When many monomers join together, they form polymers. And so, for example, a single sugar molecule is a monomer, while uh, glycogen, which is many glucose sugars linked together, is a polymer. So mono means one, poly means many, mer means unit. So monomer is one unit and polymer is many units. So there's an example of, let's say, a bunch of glucose monosaccharides forming a polysaccharide, which is also a monomer and a polymer. So glucose molecules forming a glycogen chain, but also there can be different monomers that come together to form a polymer. So I want you to be able to identify the four main macromolecules, describe their functions, and give examples of each. So there are four main macromolecules we're going to talk about: carbs, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. We'll break down each one here. Carbohydrates are commonly known as sugars. They're made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen in a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every carbon, there's two hydrogens and one oxygen. This will be important when we talk about cellular respiration and photosynthesis, but we'll get more into that later on. Monomers are simple sugars, also called monosaccharides. Monosaccharides are specifically carbohydrate monomers. Saccharide means sugar, so mono is one sugar. Likewise, you also have polysaccharides, which is many sugars. So monomers include simple sugars like glucose, fructose, and galactose. Polymers of carbohydrates include starch, glycogen, and cellulose. There's an image of glucose. If you were to count all these up, you'd have C6H12O6. Glucose is very important, like I said, for cellular respiration, photosynthesis. C6H12O6 satisfies this ratio of one carbon to two hydrogens to one oxygen. C6, there's 6 of these, 12 of these, 6 of these. Carbohydrates provide quick energy and structural support. They're very important for your athletic performance. Plants store starch and use cellulose to build stems and leaves, while animals store glycogen in muscles and in liver. Bread and pasta are good examples of carbohydrate-rich foods. Bread and pasta are polysaccharides or polymers that we eat and digest and break it down into monosaccharides like glucose. And then from there, we use that glucose for energy, or we store it or convert it into fat if there's too much of it. Lipids include fats, oils, waxes, and steroids. Unlike carbs, lipids are mostly carbon and hydrogen. There's some oxygen in there as well, so they are made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. They're hydrophobic, meaning they don't dissolve in water. They're afraid of water. They're built from glycerol and one or more fatty acids. Lipids provide long-term energy storage, so the fat that we store in our bodies is stored energy, and we use fat for energy for lower intensity, long duration exercise. So even just sitting here watching this video and using your brain, you're burning fat for fuel. They also form the membranes around cells and even act as chemical messengers. So long-term energy storage form cell membranes and act as chemical messengers. Examples include butter, oils, and nuts that are high in lipids. We will talk ad nauseum about cell membranes, right? So the membranes around our 30 trillion or so cells are made of fats as well. Nucleic acid. The examples here are deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid, RNA, DNA, which I'm sure you guys have heard about. So those are the macromolecules. Nucleic acids. They are made of nucleotide monomers. So a monomer for nucleic acids is a nucleotide. Each one contains a sugar, a phosphate group, and a nitrogen base. We'll talk a lot about the uh, nitrogen bases and how that forms our DNA and our genetic information. And their function is to store genetic information in cells in the form of a code. So this DNA here. And RNA usually copies that code. The difference between DNA and RNA is one, their function, and two, that they have different sugars in their nucleotides. But we're going to keep it as simple as that for now. Proteins are made of amino acids, which is the monomer. So I actually want to go back real quick. Nucleic acids have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, as well as nitrogen and phosphate in their chemical structure. So more than just CHO, they also have NNP. Proteins have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and also nitrogen. They're composed of long chains of amino acids. Amino acids are the monomers. Each amino acid contains an amino group and a carboxyl group. And an R group. We're not going to dive too much into that. It's a little bit beyond the scope of this class. But the R group is what makes each amino acid unique. There's the 20 different amino acids, but the combinations of them can create a variety of structures. They regulate cell processes, form muscles and bones, and transport materials, and do much more. They serve as enzymes that help to decompose and synthesize things and act as a catalyst. And their function depends on their 3D shape, which allows them to fit perfectly with other molecules. We'll talk about the quaternary structure of proteins. They fold 4 times. We'll do a lab on this. And then here's a summary table of each of these. The monomers for each macromolecule. So monosaccharide, glycerol and fatty acid, nucleotide and amino acid for the 4 macromolecules. The macromolecules are the polymers. All 4 macromolecules contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Proteins also contain nitrogen, and then nucleic acids also contain nitrogen and phosphate. And there's your summary.